Hello, friends. Let's talk about emotional sobriety today in a reactive culture. There is a quiet shift that has taken place in the way we relate to emotion. At one time, emotions were understood to be part of the human experience. They're important, yes. Meaningful, yes. But they were not definitive. They were something to be acknowledged, explored, and understood. Now, in many spaces, feelings have taken on a different role. They have become the authority. If something feels wrong, it is treated as wrong. If something feels offensive, it is assumed to be harmful. If someone does not feel the same way, it is often interpreted not as a difference in perception, but as a failure of character. You can see this shift clearly in the unspoken rule that seems to govern many conversations today. If you don't feel this, you are the problem. And just like that, emotion moves from being a signal to becoming a standard. This creates a kind of emotional pressure that is difficult to name, but very easy to feel. You are not only expected to think a certain way, you are expected to feel a certain way, and to feel it visibly, immediately, and intensely. There's little space for processing, for hesitation, or for asking questions that might complicate the emotional narrative. In this environment, emotion becomes performative. People learn, often without realizing it, that expressing the correct feeling is a way of signaling alignment. It becomes a marker of belonging. And over time, this can blur the line between what someone genuinely feels and what they feel expected to express. But when emotion becomes something we perform rather than something we process, we lose access to something essential. We lose honesty. A Logitarian does not dismiss emotion. Emotion matters. It is a part of how we experience the world, how we connect with others, and how we recognize what is meaningful to us. It can alert us to injustice, deepen our empathy, and bring awareness to what might otherwise go unnoticed. But emotion, while valid, is not always reliable. It is shaped by perspective, by past experiences, by incomplete information, and by the environment we are in. It can be influenced, intensified, and even manipulated without us realizing it. A powerful story, a carefully edited clip, or a charged piece of language can amplify an emotional response before we have had time to evaluate what we are responding to. And when that happens, it becomes easy to mistake the intensity of a feeling for the accuracy of a conclusion. But intensity is not evidence. And feeling something strongly does not automatically make it true. This is where the distinction becomes critical. There is a difference between feeling deeply and being ruled by what you feel. To feel deeply is to be aware. It is to allow yourself to experience emotion without suppressing it or denying it. It is to recognize what is happening internally without immediately needing to act on it. To be ruled by emotion, on the other hand, is to allow that feeling to dictate your response without examination. It is to move from stimulus to reaction without pausing to consider whether the response aligns with truth, context, or understanding. In a reactive culture, this distinction is often lost. Emotion becomes the driver rather than the indicator. It moves the conversation forward before clarity has had a chance to catch up. And when enough people operate this way at the same time, it's not just confusion, it's escalation, it's chaos. To hold emotion without being controlled by it requires something that is increasingly becoming rare. It requires emotional sobriety. Emotional sobriety does not mean becoming detached or indifferent. It does not mean numbing yourself or refusing to engage. It means remaining present with what you feel while maintaining the ability to think clearly within it. It is the ability to say, I feel this strongly, and I am still going to examine it. It is the willingness to sit with discomfort without rushing to discharge it through reaction. It is the discipline of creating space between what you feel and what you do. In a culture that rewards immediacy, this kind of restraint can feel unnatural, but it is also what allows clarity to emerge. One of the simplest ways to begin practicing this is to name what you feel without immediately responding to it. Instead of moving straight from emotion to action, you pause and identify the emotion itself. I feel angry. I feel defensive. I feel unsettled. I feel validated. This may seem small, but it creates distance. It separates the experience of the emotion from the impulse to act on it. It allows you to observe what is happening internally without being carried by it. And in that space, something important becomes possible. You begin to ask, why? Why do I feel this way? What is this connected to? Is this reaction based on what is actually happening or what I think is happening? That moment of reflection interrupts the automatic cycle of reaction and replaces it with awareness. Another practice that reshapes how you engage with emotion is simple but not easy. Delay your response. When something triggers you, especially in a public or digital space, resist the urge to respond immediately. Give yourself time to step back, to breathe, to let the initial intensity settle. This doesn't mean ignoring the situation. It means choosing not to engage with it at the peak of your emotional response. Because what feels urgent in the moment often loses its intensity when given time. What feels clear in the heat of reaction often becomes more complex when it's revisited with a steadier mind. And what you choose to say after that pause is often very different from what you would have said in the first few seconds. This is not weakness, my friends. This is discipline. When you begin to hold emotion rather than be ruled by it, something shifts in how you move through the world. You become less reactive, not because you care less, but because you are no longer being pulled in every direction by every stimulus. You gain the ability to stay grounded, even when the environment around you is not. This does not make you passive, it makes you steady. And steadiness in a reactive culture is powerful because it allows you to engage without escalating, to respond without reacting, and to remain clear even when others are not. A Logitarian does not deny emotion, they hold it, they sit with it, they examine it, they refuse to be ruled by it. And in doing so, they create space for clarity where there would otherwise be reaction. We are Logitarians. We feel deeply. We think clearly. We respond with intention. Thank you for joining me, my friends. And I hope this has given you something to think about. Until next time, remember to stay healthy in heart.